Hey everybody, it's Alex from Engineering Applied, and we're going to accelerate your career, hobby, or business with this overview of the available Revolve functions found in Autodesk Inventor. If you want more easy to understand and practical content made by an experienced engineer like myself, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any helpful content like this in the future. If you're looking for a specific function, check the description for timestamps, and if you don't find what you're looking for in this video, check out my other videos in the Autodesk Inventor series playlist because I'm confident you'll find exactly what you need. Let's get started. Okay, so we have our part file open, and I went ahead and created a 2D sketch on the XY plane because you need to have a sketch created before we do our revolve. And so in this case, you'll notice I created a little section of what in this hypothetical situation would be a stepper motor shaft. And you'll notice that we have this small section drawn up here, but it's not a complete cross section. Well, that's because we're going to take this small section, which I've dimensioned to be half of the diameter and, various lengths that I need for this shaft. And we're going to revolve it around the long axis to create that solid cylindrical shape. You could also revolve your profiles around various other elements. Let's say, for example, if I revolved it around the short side, it would actually create more of a disc shape, which is not exactly what we want in this case, but that option is there as well. So we're going to click Finish Sketch. So we finished our sketch and we go into Revolve. Now, we have a bunch of options that populate here. I'm going to step through it starting at the top left and working our way down to the bottom right, just so it's easier for you to follow along. Now, the first thing that we see at the top here is our Properties tab. So this is basically our main window that shows us all of the properties of our Revolve feature that we're creating here. We can hit this little X button to close out of the Revolve tool, but we want to look at some other stuff, so we'll just click back into that. We have a plus sign, so we can add another tab so we can work with our iLogic tools, favorites, like our content center, resources and whatnot. Okay, so moving along the top here, we have our advanced settings menu. So if we go into this menu, we have a few different options plus a little help menu. So you click on help, it'll take you to the Autodesk help resources. Now the first option in our menu is our Keep Sketch Visible On. So when this is active and we select our revolve axis and use this little Apply and Create New Revolution button, it leaves the original sketch profile visible. Now if we just cancel that and go back and uncheck this option, select our axis and press plus, that sketch profile disappears from our visible space. We'll go back and redo this again, go back into our menu. And so next we have hide presets. It's currently active. If we just uncheck this, it reveals our preset selection and creation menu. I'll get more into depth on what this does exactly and how to use it in just a moment. Moving down, we have our single enter to finish command. Currently it's active. So when it's active, we just select our axis that we want to revolve around. And let's change this value in here. Let's change it to 180 degrees. If we press enter once, it'll finish the command in one key press. Now, if we go back and change that setting, so if we uncheck that, select our axis, and let's change this to 220, for example. If we hit enter once, it doesn't finish the command. We hit it a second time, it does finish the command. So that's the use of that particular option within the advanced settings menu. So let's go back to our revolve window here. Down here, you'll have like a little navigation area, which allows you to jump back and forth between the current feature that we're editing, which is our revolve, and the sketch that it's sourced off of. So you'll notice we can edit the name. So if we hover over the revolution space here, we can just left click there and let's change it to Revolution 1. So this is a great way to keep track of specific features that you've created in your design. As the design gets more complicated, you can really hone in on the naming structure of your individual features so that you don't really get lost in the hierarchy of your model tree here on the left side as your design gets a little bit more complex. Here you have your sketch 1 grayed out. So this just indicates what sketch this is using to create the revolution feature. Now, to actually edit this, we need to create our revolve axis first. So we make sure our axis selection box is active with that little blue line as our indicator. And we come up here to sketch and we can actually edit the sketch feature on the fly as we're going along. So if we just click sketch 1 here, we can jump right into the sketch. And let's say I wanted to change one of these dimensions, so I can double click on this 0.750. Let's change it to 0.550 maybe. Okay. And then we can click this return to revolve to go back to our revolve menu. If we click finish sketch, it'll go ahead and get out of the sketch view and it'll finish that revolve command all in one shot. Okay, we're back in our revolve menu and I went ahead and undid those changes that we did because there's a couple other features that I want to show you. So we've already played around with the navigation menu and renaming the feature and editing the sketch. Next, we have our solid mode or surface mode. So currently, you see this little blue cube here. That means that we're currently in our solid mode. So when I select an axis and in this revolves it and creates a solid body. Now, I can also change this to surface mode just by clicking on this icon, and you'll notice that the color and the overall appearance of this changes to surface geometry. So if you're trying to create surface geometry with the Revolve tool, this is how you would do it all in one shot. Okay, so moving down here to the input geometry section, this is really where the meat of the functionality resides for the Revolve tool. So your first box here is your profile selection box. So this essentially just allows us to select which profiles we want to revolve. Now you'll notice I made an edit to the sketch with this little partition here. And this was to show you that you can actually select independent profiles within your sketch. You don't necessarily have to have a sketch that resembles exactly what you want to revolve. So here I have a couple segments. I can revolve those segments independently if I want to. So if I make sure my profile selection box is active with this little blue line, that's how you know it's active. I can hover over, let's say we just want to revolve the front section. We can certainly do that. We go down to our axis selection tool. So we just click in that little white box until we get that thin blue line at the bottom showing it's active. And let's revolve it around this long axis on the bottom. Now you'll notice that it revolves only that front section. But let's say I want to revolve everything as one big piece. I go back up to the profile section and you see it's active. If I click it, it goes inactive or it goes into a non-active state. I can click it again. It has that blue line showing it's active. And then I go to this back section and you'll notice that it's highlighted in green and I can just click it there and it creates that whole one solid piece. Now, in practice, you don't want to have a parting line if it has no utility in the design itself. I just wanted to show you how you could select separate segments with that. Now, moving down here, we have our behavior section. So this really governs exactly how the revolve happens itself. So right now, you'll notice that it's set to flipped. So let's say, for example, you don't want to revolve it the full 360 degrees. I can come into this angle box and let's say we only want to revolve it, let's go 90 degrees on this. So you'll see that it has a 90-degree segment. And if we click this default option here, it just flips the direction of the revolve itself, but we'll go back to flipped. Now, the next option is symmetric. So you can actually revolve something symmetrically about its starting plane. So our starting plane or our sketch plane is our X, Y plane. So if we go to symmetric here, you'll notice it's revolved 90 degrees with 45 degrees off of each side of the original sketch plane. And then finally, we have asymmetric. So if we click asymmetric, we can actually revolve at two different angles. So maybe the first angle I want to be 180, and the second one I want to leave at 45 degrees. So depending on your design intent, you can control a lot about the original profile with these different options. You see this little down arrow here. And what this does for us is it changes the icon or selector style for our icon. So currently it's set to the icon mode. We could go to Dropdown and it changes the selection filters or options to a drop-down menu. I prefer the icons myself, but do with that what you will. Now, we'll just set this back to flipped because we all want it to revolve as one piece. Now, let's say we always want it to revolve the full 360 degrees and we don't want to have to manually type anything in here. Well, you go to this full option and it will always do that full revolve all the way back around to the beginning plane that it started at. Okay, so to illustrate the two function, I went ahead and drew up a rectangular solid that is coincident with this revolve axis line that we'll be using to revolve this profile around. So first, what we want to do is we want to go to 2 under the behavior section. And for this example, let's say that we want to revolve this shape until it touches the top of this face. Well, we can certainly do that. We just go down to our axis and select the axis we want to revolve around. And then we go to the to option, make sure it's highlighted with that blue line, and we'll select the top face of this part. So you'll notice that the shaft gets revolved all the way around, and that's because the extend face to end feature option is selected. So if we unselect or deselect that or uncheck it, you'll notice that it only goes 90 degrees or until it hits the face there. Now, you'll notice there's another option that's enabled. It's the minimum solution is on option. If we uncheck that, it'll allow the shape to revolve around until it hits the underside of the face. So depending on what exactly you're trying to accomplish with your design, there's plenty of options available to you to allow the revolve to behave in the manner in which you are requesting it to. Now, I want to take a step back here and go back into Revolve because I want to show you the to next option. The to next option, when you select this, allows us to revolve our profile up until it hits a reference solid. So, I've selected our to next. We'll select our revolve axis. We'll select that long axis again. Now, you'll notice that it revolves until it hits this solid that we're referencing, which is that rectangular solid that I went ahead and extruded earlier. Now, let's say we want it to revolve on the other side. We can just go up to our direction and click default, and it'll take it to the other side. Now, just keep in mind, if you select symmetric or asymmetric, it'll get out of the to next option. So just be aware of that. Okay, so next we have our output section, which contains our Boolean operations. So since we have our rectangular solid present in the same 3D space as this 2D sketch, it asks us what we want to do with this new 3D profile that gets created out of this revolve. So we'll select our long axis and we'll say, let's just let it revolve 360 degrees. So if we look at our first output option, which is join, if we hit OK there, you'll notice that it joins and combines that revolve feature that we created with this solid rectangular block that we have down here. It's not two separate pieces. Now, if we go back into Revolve and do that same operation again and go to Cut, it'll take out that Revolve profile there. So if we hit OK, you'll notice it makes a little pocket there where our Revolve passed through. Go back to Revolve once more. We have our Intersect option. So if we revolve this and then click Intersect, it will only keep the 3D geometry where there's an intersection between the two profiles or between the solid rectangular body and the revolved profile. So if I hit OK, you'll notice it just leaves half of that piece that was part of that intersection. So if I go back and go back to Revolve once more, we have our new solid option. So let's say I want to have two separate parts. So maybe I want to keep the rectangular solid separate from the cylindrical solid from this revolve. So I can go to new solid, select my revolve axis and hit OK. And you'll notice when I hover over this, it maintains the entire profile on its own. So this is, again, if you want to keep it two separate entities, you can certainly do that. Go back to Revolve. You have your same little selector style drop-down menu, so we can change it from icons to a drop-down menu if that's what you prefer. Okay, so moving down here, we have our advanced property section. So let's open that up. And then you'll notice we have a little checkbox that says iMate next to it. So by clicking this, we can infer iMates onto our part as we create it. So say, for example, we're creating an assembly where the shaft will fit, have a concentric mate with a bearing. And we want to automate that process because for whatever reason, we're using these parts and mates several times or constraints several times over again, and we don't have to manually do those individually. Well, we can automate that process when we create our revolve features. So if I check that and just select my axis and hit OK, you'll notice we get our iMate option there. So we could come back and put a bearing over this part and just sort of automate that assembly process. Okay, so now that you understand how to create a revolve feature, I want to go back up to the top and give you an explanation on how to use the presets. So presets are handy for when you want to automate your design process with a standard set of parameters that you commonly use. So For this example, we'll just select this long axis. And let's say our first preset is I commonly create a 180-degree revolve feature that I use for the parts that I'm designing. So I can type in 180 there, and I can go up to this little create new preset option, or that little plus sign, and I'm going to left click. And now I can name it to whatever I want. So I can call it, let's say, call it Revolution 180. And we can click that check mark there. And now if you go to this drop-down menu, you'll see that we have a new preset created. Now, let's create a different preset. Let's say we have another one where we want to revolve it all the way around fully every single time. Well, we can go to, you'll notice that it wanted to change that. We'll just go to no preset and then click new preset to make sure we don't overwrite the 180 preset that we created. And we'll just call this one Revolution 360. And so now we have two different presets of standard parameters that we commonly use. So you can jump back and forth between those, and you'll notice that it picks up all of those parameters that we originally wanted. So this helps automate your design process a little bit. Now, if we move over here, we have our preset settings. Here you can save your presets, rename them, delete them. You can change the sort order of your presets in your drop-down menu based on your preferences. And you can also change what your revolve feature defaults to. So if you always want it to default to 180-degree revolve, you can choose which preset you want to use. So in this case, we would select Revolution 180, come down here and then use current preset and check this option. And now anytime we create a revolution in the feature, it'll default to this preset option. So we'll actually go back to no preset. And again, you can delete your presets. So let's say, for example, we stopped using the 180-degree one. We could go to the menu and then just click delete current, and that'll delete that preset from your drop-down menu. That concludes this segment of the Autodesk Inventor part creation module, where we took a look at the available Revolve function. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on future content that will help you reach your goals along your journey. And of course, don't hesitate to leave a comment or reach out via my website contact page and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to learn about or see on this channel. I love sharing my knowledge and experience with the community, and I can't wait to see all of the positive impact you'll create out in the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.